everybody. Welcome to Unexplained Reality. I'm Brian Quinn, and with me is my son,
Harrison Quinn.
And we're back with episode 2, and hopefully everybody's ready for that. We are, but to start things off, I thought we'd do some news in the world of cryptozoology and all that is strange and unexplained in the world. Harrison, you got anything, buddy?
Not really. No.
All right. Well, I was looking through here and I see there's a this is a story about a woman claiming to see Bigfoot watching her through her window in Oklahoma as she's getting a glass of water. But as I was reading through this on cryptozoologynews.com, it appears that it actually happened in 2015, so it wasn't a recent encounter. I was thinking this was something that happened today or the past couple days, but apparently I was wrong. Looking through some other ones. Home Office rejects Nessie UK residency bid. Awesome. Apparently she can't live there legally. This was interesting. There's a video on YouTube of apparently a homeless Russian man mistaking a drone for a UFO, and apparently he's trying to shoot it down with imaginary weapons. It's a pretty interesting video. You should check it out. But that's about all I have. I don't have anything interesting. I thought that was a funny video, but so I guess we'll roll into it. So tonight we're talking about the Valley of the Headless Men in Nahinni National Park in Canada. Pretty interesting place. We'll just kind of roll into it. I got some facts here about it just to start us off, but apparently the park is in the Deno region of the Northwest Territories of Canada. From what I read, it's fairly close to the Arctic Circle, so it's a pretty remote place. You can't drive there. It's I guess the recommended way to or method to get there is by a float plane. So that tells you it's you're not gonna have a Walmart close by or anything. So
Pretty secluded,
yeah. And apparently the park is cut in half by the Nahinni River, and it runs from end to end. Apparently it's got some pretty wicked white water on it for kayakers and those that would be interested in that. There's 4 main canyons in the park, and they were named apparently by the prospectors that were searching for gold in that area. It is called them the first, second, third, and fourth canyons. And these canyons can reach 1,000 meters in depth, which is pretty substantial compared to like the Grand Canyon. You got some stuff, buddy?
Also in the park is Virginia Falls, which is probably one of the biggest waterfalls ever. Twice as high as Niagara Falls. Located, which it runs down to the river, the Nahinni River, which cuts the state park in half. So that's definitely something you want to see there. There's boiling whirlpools and a lot of natural hot springs across the area that I'm seeing. They're also known as Hell's Gate, which could tie into what we're going to be talking about today.
Yeah, they have the name Nahinni comes from the Dene language, which is indigenous to the area. The area is referred to as Nahanni, which means river of the land of the Naha people. It's been speculated that the Naha people are actually ancestors from modern-day Navajo. I don't know who speculates that, but I don't think there's legitimate documentation for that. I'm sure it's oral history or something that comes in play there. One of the interesting things about the place, there's the Rabbit Kettle Hot Springs and the Tufu Mounds are located in the park. And these hot springs percolate up hot water, which mixes with cool water and creates these particles, calcium carbonate particles, which accumulate and create these mounds, which are believed to be like 10,000 years old. And for this purpose, that area is a Zone 1 special preservation area. And to visit that area where these mounds are at, you have to be accompanied by a Parks Canada staff member, and you got to be barefoot just to preserve and not impact that area. Because of the hot springs and the soil makeup, there's a lot of a diverse variety of fauna and flora there in that park, and it's more so than any other park in Canada. So it's almost got some areas in the park where the hot springs are at, where it pretty much stays tropical kind of year round, just because of the heat coming out of the earth. So that's kind of cool. And that kind of adds the mystique to the whole, park, and just the stuff we're going to talk about tonight, the weirdness and things that have gone on in this park, and still probably are going on that it's just not reported, or not people aren't aware of. The Dene are sometimes referred to as the Slave people. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. Slavey. Local oral history refers to the Naha tribe, which was supposed to be a mountain-dwelling people. These people would come out of the mountains and raid the lowland settlements, and they were known for decapitating people that they raided, and they would keep the skulls, or keep the heads, so they would leave all these decapitated bodies down in these settlements that they raided, with no heads. However, this tribe inexplicably disappeared. Nobody knows. It's makes you think of like the Mayans and stuff, that they were gone. They were there, and then all of a sudden there's no more. Some sources have claimed that those people, the Naha people or Naha tribe, that they were unusually large people. I guess kind of giants. Let's see. I guess you have any more facts about the park, or you want to roll right into the incidents?
I say we get right into it.
All right. Well, I guess the claim to fame for the park, and specifically for the 200-mile gorge, which is also called the Valley of the Headless Men, is in 1908. There was two brothers named the McLeod brothers, Willie and Frank. They came to the region. There was rumors of gold, and that the valley was just riddled with gold, that you could find nuggets just laying out open, and that there was veins of gold all in the cliffs and stuff, lining the valley. So obviously these guys were prospectors, and they were like, they're going to go up there and make some money. All they got to do is get into that valley, even though it's rugged country. We get in there and find some gold and hit their fortune. Unfortunately, these guys never returned from Nahinni after they went there. But a year later, another prospector was in the valley and was searching for gold, and he found Willie and Frank decapitated. I've read reports online that they were found tied to trees and decapitated. The head's nowhere to be found. I don't know. Regardless if they were tied to a tree laying out on the ground, they were decapitated, which is bad juju. And a horrible, horrible way to, end your prospecting career there. Years later, in 1917, Martin Jorgensen was also a prospector, and he went to the valley searching for gold. And he actually set up kind of a homestead there. He had a cabin, and was doing pretty good. Had his little camp set up. Well, some prospectors came upon his camp and found his cabin burnt down. And after inspecting the ashes, they found his skeleton, once again headless, burnt up in the cabin, and no skull around. So it's very, very strange. I mean, I don't. It could be. Is it other prospectors? I guess there's been speculation, and because it's so remote, who's going to police that area? Who's really going to be able to investigate it? But, it seems like you got a couple scenarios there. When it's a decapitation and the skull's gone, you gotta think it was somebody that knows how to use tools. You wouldn't think that would be some kind of animal, that grizzlies or something that you would expect to be in that area. Wouldn't be able to decapitate this, or let me go ahead and take the head and remove it, or
and more so, not even like just being able to decapitate, the trademark of the decapitation of everyone who had seemed to have been murdered or died in that valley had been decapitated. I mean, whoever the killer was, whoever the killer was, it was kind of their trademark, their imprint that they left on people that had come through. I kind of take that as, don't come through here. This is our valley. You come through here, we're gonna cut your head off. It's kind of.
Yeah, it sounds kind of territorial, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So either you got territorial prospectors, or you got territorial Naha tribe that are still living in the mountains and nobody knows. They think they've disappeared. Maybe there's a few of them. Supposedly this valley has over 250 plus caves. So who knows who could be in those caves? I'm sure all of them haven't been explored thoroughly. We have huge cave systems here in the lower 48 that are in parks and national parks here that are accessible by a car, and people can get to very easily, that have not been explored completely. So who knows? But it is very interesting, and it's crazy. It almost seems like it would have to be like a prehistoric type individual or something. I couldn't see even though these happened in the early 1900s. Even prospectors, if you don't want somebody around, why would you decapitate them and keep their head?
Very savage, very brutal.
Yeah.
Less of a.
It's more tribal feel to it than just, hey, I don't want you taking my gold.
Yeah, to kill someone in your land is one step, but to decapitate them and leave the bodies, it almost seems like they wanted people to find the bodies. If they left them out in the open or tied them up to trees, is more. I think that was
right.
Displaying that.
Yeah, it's more like a warning, like this fear-mongering kind of deal.
Yeah.
Not some prospector holed up in some cave with a pile of gold on one side and a pile of skulls on the other. I told him not to come in here. Yeah, it's weird. Well, fast forwarding from into 1945, there was another prospector. He was from Ontario, same situation. Went in looking for gold, was found, decapitated. He was still in the sleeping bag at his campsite. So, it almost, the more you think about it, almost has to be something like that, like tribal people that are still around, and people are just not aware of it. It's a massive area. Massive, it's remote. Like I said, there's no, I don't think there's any inhabitants very, very close. I don't think there's like a town close by. I think there's some settlements from the gold days along the river. Some different small towns, but there's still, there again, I don't think they're accessible other than by a float plane or something like that. It's extremely remote, and I think I read it's something like 11,000 square miles makes up this park, so it's massive area.
Yeah.
it's interesting, but because of these things that have happened, there's a number of names associated in the park that refer to these gory incidents. They have Headless Creek, the Funeral Range, Dead Man Valley, Headless Range, the Valley of the Headless Men. It's just all reference to those events that happen, and these horrific ways these guys passed away. And the place is it's a beautiful place, but it's very strange, very mystical. But the headless bodies is only part of the mystique of that valley. There's a high number of Sasquatch sightings. There's UFO sightings that have been witnessed there. Lots of strange and mysterious light phenomena, as well as disappearances of people. So not only do you have people going in there and losing their head, you have people that go in there and just don't return, and they're never found. Their bodies have never been found. So I mean, where does that go? That's a whole nother thing. But I don't know. There's been if you get deep into it, any number of things. I mean, Bigfoot. You've had disappearances supposedly tied to Bigfoot. You've had disappearances supposedly tied to UFO encounters. And if you have a prehistoric people or a tribal people in that area, I mean, that could account for it too. I mean, if they're whacking off heads and keeping them, what's to say they wouldn't just take a whole person? I don't know. Maybe it's sad to think about, but maybe they're hard up for some food or something, and here comes Prospector in, and they just he's a number one chop on the menu that night.
There was a discovery about a ice cave called Grotte Valerie, where skeletons of over 100 sheep were found, saying that they starved to death around 2500 BC, which earned the cave the nickname the Gallery of the Lost Sheep. I thought that was kind of strange. You don't see animals that starve to death in caves, so
how would they get there?
You were talking about how they supposedly lived in caves, or they could have lived in caves on the mountain because there's so many caves in that area. Why would sheep starve in caves? Why, it's almost like they were in there and they couldn't get out, and they were abandoned or something, and they ended up starving because they said they ended up starving. That's their conclusion of how all the sheep died. But so I'm thinking maybe the people, the Naha people, took the sheep as food and maybe kept them in the caves, and something happened, they had to leave the caves and couldn't take the sheep, and sheep starved, and that's left over the Gallery of the Lost Sheep. So that could tie in with all of that.
Yeah, I mean, even though there's parts of that area or that park that are tropical because of the heat and the vents coming out of the earth, you got to go back to thinking, I mean, this is very close to Arctic Circle. So those areas where you don't have that going on, you don't have those hot springs, you don't have the vents coming out, you get away from those. It's going to be very cold in certain parts of the year. And probably pretty much all year it's going to be a mild temperature. But in the winter, it's got to be, we see places in the States that get into the negative numbers in the winter. So this place is like 8 hours from, or maybe even more, from the U.S.-Canada border. So it's very close to the Arctic Circle, and yeah, I mean, but why would sheep be in a cave, like you said? I don't. But maybe the people that were there. I don't know. That's very strange. That brings up another, with that talking about these frozen sheep. There's another story of a prospector that was found dead at his campsite. I don't have the year on that. I think it was after 1945, but this man was found. There was obvious signs he had a campfire, yet his body was found completely frozen with matches in his hand.
Matches in his hand,
Yeah, and it was the people that found him said it was as if his body had been flash frozen because he was frozen solid. And it's just crazy. That's weird, but
you don't just freeze like flash freeze like that. You don't just completely freeze solid, even if you're in the Arctic. But I mean, especially with a fire there's a sign there's a campfire, so it must have been lit. So I don't understand, how he could have had matches in his hand. If there wasn't fire, he could have started a fire, and there was obvious signs of a fire going on. So I don't understand, how he could have flash froze. That could, be bad juju from the Naha people. They could, cast some black magic or something, or
Well, I guess looking at a natural respect here, I guess you getting that far north, which I've never lived that far north, or not even more than a couple states north of where we're at right now. If you get that high up, I guess if you have a cold snap that comes through, and depending on where the camp is at, if you don't have wind blocks, you got wind coming in. If you're in a valley, that cold air can travel down a valley very fast. And if he had a fire, if he didn't have some way of capturing that heat around him, I mean, it's understandable. He could have frozen. Yeah, he could have frozen, but it seems very weird that he had matches in his hands. He had a fire going, yet he froze solid. I think there's a potential it could have been natural, but was it something supernatural? Was it something otherworldly? Kind of, I don't know. But people, there's been many people that have gone to this valley and gone to the Nahinni National Park and have returned fine and had no issues. But a lot of people that have gone and explored and come back safely returned, they've claimed that while they were there, they felt ominous. That the valley felt ominous. They felt like they were constantly being watched.
I mean, I feel with a park that big, so much potential for things you don't know about to be there. And you're talking about how there's mining facilities on the banks and stuff. I would feel pretty bad being there anyway. All those abandoned buildings and just out in the middle of nowhere. Absolutely 11,000 square miles of just wilderness. You don't know what could be in the woods a mile ahead of you. It could be clear, or there could be bears or the Naha people, or whatever. This just really really unknown territory, I think. So that would I'd feel pretty ominous if I was there, like I was being watched.
Yeah, I mean, I've been in some remote places and some national forests and stuff, but nothing remote like this. And I mean, just being in the woods by yourself, you can get an ominous feeling. I think your mind works against you when you're thousands of miles from potentially another person, or hundreds of miles. It can play on your mind. So I mean, maybe that's part of it. But I think it's interesting that the people that are indigenous to the area claim that the valley is haunted, and they call it the Valley of the Devils. So. Yeah, I don't know. I put a lot of stock in what native people and indigenous people claim. It goes back to other stuff. You go back to Sasquatch. People say, there's no way Sasquatch, these people are making it all up. Well, how can you account for thousands of years of native people claiming that these things exist? And then you have thousands of people modern day that claim to have sightings and encounters. It's the same thing with this. We can speculate all we want, but if indigenous people say that's a haunted valley and that's the Valley of Devils, that's good enough reason for me to say, hey, I don't want to. Why would I go in there?
Not gonna dance around in there.
Yeah.
Not gonna just trot around. Thousands of years of native culture, and they say Valley of the Devils, and I'm not going to be there, and if I'm there, I'm going to get out.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like the situation in the Ural Mountains, where in Siberia, where those people went in hiking, those students, and they wound up all dead and frozen. Some of them had body damage, like they'd been internal damage to their organs, like they'd been thrown up against trees and stuff. And the indigenous people in that area, the mountain where they were at, where they were found, there was like, you don't go there. That's where the wild men live. I mean, come on. I don't know. I mean, you can't. It's like, you know, you can take a horse to water, but you can't get him to drink. I don't know. I something's going on in this area.
Yeah,
Something's going on in this park for sure.
If I want to hike through Valley and the native people there say it's haunted and it's the Valley of Devils and someone froze to death there, you know, I'm gonna listen to them. I'm not gonna go trolleying through it like, you know, nothing's wrong. You know, just not listen to the people. You know, let's just go die in a valley.
Right. I mean, one person coming up, you know, headless is enough for me. I mean, granted, you know, I don't think there's been any accounts of that since the 40s, since 1945 when the last one documented one happened. But there's been plenty of other claims in that area since then. You know, people come up missing, and you know, the UFOs, Sasquatch sightings, and all kind of light phenomena happening. So it's weird, but people speculate, you know, there's lots of theories about this area, and like some of them are, some people think that because of the vents that are opening from the earth and the tropical areas, the hot springs and all that it could be an entrance to the hollow earth for the people that believe in the hollow earth theory, which I think is, to my thought is, that's a crazy belief, because I mean, you have volcanoes, you have all this hot stuff oozing up out of the earth. And how can you have a hollow earth?
And it absolutely could be, you know, false, but you know, you got to think about it. If you know, there's so much earth, like it is with the ocean. There's so much ocean. There's no possible way that we're gonna search the entire ocean in the next 100 years. It's just not. There's too much of it. We can't research the whole thing. And it's the same way with the underground. There's even more, you know, area underground than there's in the ocean. So you never know. You know, I'm not gonna say, you know, some people say hollow earth, and then some people say there's monsters and stuff living down there. I'm not gonna go that far. You know, maybe some unknown species, but nothing, you know, supernatural. I'm not, maybe, but hollow earth, I definitely think could be something worth looking into. But some people take things too far. Like, some people take rumors too far. Like, you can understand having a rumor or having like a myth like that, but some people just like add on to it and have extra. Like, some people say Sasquatch, and some people are like, well, I saw Sasquatch and I was with my buddy Billy Bo Bob, and you know, he grabbed him and ripped his head off and threw him 300 feet. You know, that's, you know, that's a little extra. I don't know about that, but you know, myth and rumors here.
Well, yeah, I mean, anything. Nobody knows for sure, but I mean, how can I have a hard time with the hollow earth theory when you've got, like I said, volcanoes, magma, stuff coming out of the earth. I guess there could be areas where those things aren't happening, where you could have pockets of caverns. I mean, we know there's caverns under the earth and in mountains and such. I don't, you know, I've not looked into the hollow earth theory. I'm not sure what those people believe, but it's like anything, people can take it as far as they want. Other people claim that the Nahinni area is a place where the dimensions, you can easily slip from dimension to dimension. I can't remember what the term is for it, but basically it's like a thin area where you can easily transition between dimensions, and maybe that's what's happening.
Like a rift.
Yeah, so I don't know. It's another theory on the stuff that happens up there, but that doesn't explain why. Well, I guess it could explain why people come up decapitated or dead. You know, if there's a dimension slip and there's some other kind of creature or being coming through, you know, a dimension there from another dimension and doing these things, and then, yeah, maybe that's what happened in the Naha tribe, why they disappeared. Maybe they figured this out and they're able to go between dimensions. They come across and whack heads off and take the heads back to the other dimension or something. I don't know. I mean, it's another theory. The one thing is for sure, though, you know, is it's a unique area. It's got a unique environment, a unique ecology, with the hot springs, the vents, the canyons, the caves. All of this combined with it being remote and rugged, it makes it, you know, a mystical place. and then you add in it these happenings and these things, people going missing, people getting decapitated, Sasquatch, UFO sightings, light anomalies, all that just adds to it, and makes it that much more of a mystical and unexplained place. Makes it worth exploring for those that are, wild enough to go in there. So, yeah, that's the Nahinni Valley. That's the history of it, and interesting place. So, what do you think we have on the board for our next episode, buddy?
I don't know. There's definitely a lot of topics and a lot of interesting things out there. Like we touched on the Hollow Earth theory. I think that could be something worth looking into.
Yeah.
And also the flat Earth theory. I've heard a lot about that recently. There's a big blow up or some discovery or some finding about it that people are going crazy about. Might look into that, but
yeah,
I'm not.
I think that's a waste. Because I mean, how can you claim that? You've got pictures from outer space, from satellites. You've got. I mean, I was just looking at earlier today because I'm reading a book right now about Area 51 and the beginning of the U2 and the SR-71, the Oxcart, project, and they have pictures from the SR-71 blackbirds. And you can see the round Earth. So I think that's unless all that's fabricated, but that goes in the whole moon landing was fabricated.
Yeah.
That whole that's a whole
the reptilian society.
Yeah, a whole bucket of worms. So I don't know. We'll see. Maybe we'll get into that. I don't know about that for the next one. That's like a whole season of shows right there for those subjects. So we'll see. We'll come up with something the next couple of days. I guess we'll wrap this up here with some credits. Do you have anything else you want to add, buddy?
Not much. If you like this, share it with your friends, or if you want us to cover something else, leave a comment on whatever you're watching, or you can email us at unexpected.reality or unexplored.reality.
Unexplained.reality@yahoo.com. One of us will get it right eventually.
Maybe. But send us an email or leave a comment, and if you can't leave a comment, send us an email at that site on what you want us to do next or what you want to see sometimes.
Yeah, or if you have a story you want to share or you'd like to be on the show. I do have a couple people lined up that want to be on episodes. I just got to find the right place when we get to their subject matter and talk about it. So we'll see. But if like Harrison said, if you have a story to tell, a counter, something weird, something strange, unexplained, drop us a line, unexplained.reality@yahoo.com. You can hit us on Facebook. We have a Facebook page now. Just go to Facebook and search for Unexplained Reality. And surely, even if you just want to give us a comment, say, hey, you guys are doing great, or we want to hear about this, or you could, the sound is off or whatever. We're working on the sound. We don't have the most optimal setup right now, but it's what we got for the moment. Also, if you whatever podcast you're listening on, just rate us, or iTunes, Google Play. We also are on Twitter and YouTube and Instagram. And like I said before, Facebook. So go to those and leave us comments, follow us, friend us, whatever. I would like to thank Ricky Young for the music for our show. He's a local guy. He's actually the cousin of a good friend that I grew up with. You can check him out at rickyyoung.com if you like his music. He's a great artist, great musician, and just all around great guy. So give him a listen, and you can also find him on your favorite music sites. He's on iTunes and it pretty much anywhere where you can get music, you can find his albums. We'd also like to thank our favorite podcasts that we listen to religiously. Please check them out if you haven't already, but I'm pretty sure you probably already have. You'll definitely enjoy them if you haven't. Sasquatch Chronicles, OK Talk, Sasquatch, Into the Fray Radio, Mysterious Universe, The Gralien Report, Expanded Perspectives, The Confessionals, and Monsters Among Us. And I guess that's going to be it tonight, buddy. Good to go? All right. We'll see you guys next time.
She's a little bit wild. She's spoiled like a child. And when she smiles, she shines like a sunflower. She's got beautiful eyes, and she uses those eyes like she's exercising some kind of superpower. Well, I knew from the first it was never gonna work, and it was gonna hurt, but still I said hello. And that dress she was in was so light and thin, like a whispering wind, and she looked so good in yellow. Oh, the days drifted by like the clouds in the sky, and it was summertime, and sometimes I still miss it. Yeah, I do. 'Cause she laid in my arms while I played my guitar on the hood of my car. She covered me with kisses. Oh, the love we made was a fiery race to a breathless place, but sometimes it was mellow. Man, that sunset there falling on her hair, God, I swear she looks so good in yellow. Oh, but I couldn't blame him, 'cause she was in that dress again, and she looked so good in yellow.